Hello, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host, Robert Serocki Jr. In today's podcast, we are going to talk about mindfulness and post-traumatic stress pathway to healing, and I'm going to try to help everyone understand the role that mindfulness plays in managing one's trauma. So, in recent years, mindfulness really has emerged as a promising therapeutic approach to help people with post-traumatic stress navigate their recovery journey and reclaim their sense of well-being. So mindfulness is rooted in ancient meditative traditions, and it entails cultivating an awareness of the present moment that you're in a non-judgmental and accepting manner. So, by focusing on the here and now, individuals can develop resilience against the distressing thoughts and memories associated with trauma that you're having. So, in this podcast, we're going to explore the relationship between mindfulness and post-traumatic stress, and we're going to discuss how mindfulness-based practices can alleviate symptoms of post-traumatic stress and promote healing. So basically, post-traumatic stress is characterized by a dysregulation of the brain's stress response mechanisms. So the amygdala, which is the brain's fear center, actually becomes hyperactive, while other areas of the brain, particularly in the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for regulating emotions, actually become less active. So it's this imbalance that leads to the persistent feelings of fear, anxiety, and detachment even long after one's trauma has passed. I mean, I had issues 20 years later. That's different for everybody too. Sometimes it happens sooner, sometimes later, sometimes both. Some symptoms of post-traumatic stress are generally characterized into like 4 clusters. Okay, the first one is intrusion, which is basically recurrent and distressing memories or nightmares or flashbacks of the traumatic event that you experienced. The second is avoidance, which we all probably know. It's efforts to avoid reminders of the trauma, and that includes people, places, activities, things, any of those things that you just try to avoid because you don't want to be around because it reminds you of your trauma. Third is negative changes in mood or cognition. This is really more or less feelings of guilt, shame, or detachment. Difficulties with one's memory and concentration. I know that was big for me. I had hard time remembering things or concentrating on things. It was really very frustrating for me. And 4 is hyperarousal, and that's basically a heightened alertness, irritability, insomnia, and an exaggerated startle response. And I had all those. The insomnia was really bad. I probably was sleeping. I was lucky if I got an hour's sleep a week, and I'm not exaggerating. I was exhausted. And I had an exaggerated startle response. I hear a loud noise like a bang or something, sound like a gunshot. I jump, start shaking, all that kind of stuff. And it's the chronic nature of all these symptoms that can make a person feel trapped in the shadow of their past, and feel disconnected from the present and the possibility of having a fulfilling future. It's a lonely spot. I know. I felt detached from all that and disconnected, and I used to tell people that would ask me about it, I just felt like a face in a sea of people, like I was nothing. And that was distressing as well. Okay, so let's talk about some foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness is really a practice that originates from Buddhist teachings, but it's been extensively adapted into our secular therapeutic context. At its core, mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment with intention, curiosity, and acceptance. So maybe like you're intending to focus on the present moment, and you're curious about why you're feeling the way you are, but you accept it. You accept it for what it is. And I did this a lot, and it helped me to figure out what my triggers were. Like I had one was the color orange, because I focused on what I was feeling and what was going on in my room at that time. I had noticed that the sun had come up and it turned the color in the room an orange color. And then I realized that reminded me of the sunrises and sunsets back in the war. And it also reminded me of explosions at night, things like that. And once I accepted it, and once I did that, it began to become easier for me to deal with it, until eventually it just didn't bother me anymore. Because for me, understanding what was going on and why was a big deal. It helped me make a lot of progress in dealing with my post-traumatic stress. So, unlike traditional distractions or avoidance strategies, mindfulness encourages a person to confront their experiences directly, which is basically what I was just talking about. And that fosters a healthier relationship with your own thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations. Through this process, you begin to understand your body better and your mind. And that understanding is huge. At least it was for me in healing my post-traumatic stress. So there's some mindfulness-based interventions, and they're really sort of structured programs that incorporate certain techniques. And I'm going to go over 4 of those. One is body scan meditation. And that's a practice that involves, focusing on different parts of your body to heighten your awareness of whatever the physical sensations you're having in that location. Second is mindful breathing, which is concentrating on the rhythm of your breath to sort of anchor your attention. Third, meditative practices. So engaging in a guided or a silent meditation to cultivate awareness and a sense of calm. I've done both those. Me personally, I just like doing the silent one. There are times I find a guided one and do it. But when I do the silent ones, I focus on my breathing. I slow it down, get it into a nice, slow, calm rhythm. And then I just pay attention to the sensations throughout my body, my fingers, toes, arms, legs, all that stuff. Feel the blood sort of pumping through your body and the energy that you feel. And for me, it makes you feel very light, calm, relaxed, peaceful. Almost like you're kind of attaching to something, like an energy source or something that sort of replenishes you. And when you're done with it, you feel good. And I would suggest starting out for like 5 minutes. And that's what I used to do because, people are busy too. So, 5 minutes and then work your way up to, if you can do 20 or 30 minutes, great. I can't always do that. Sometimes I can. And then the days that I can't, I just do it for like 5 minutes. And it can even be like sitting out on your front patio, which I do frequently. I have trees and plants and stuff out there. There's birds and stuff everywhere. I'll sit out there and just watch the sunset when the weather's nice, and just be quiet and at peace. That's a form of meditation as well. I'm just focusing on the present moment, which we talked about, and enjoying and paying attention to what's going on around me. That also helps you feel more connected to the world and to everything around you. And it sort of helps break down those feelings of detachment. And the last thing is mindful movement, and that's things like yoga or tai chi that integrate your mindfulness with actual physical activity. I have tried yoga before. It works, sort of help stretch things out in that, but it just wasn't my thing, so I never really stuck with it. So let's talk about how mindfulness actually supports post-traumatic stress recovery. So research has actually demonstrated that mindfulness-based practices can be beneficial for people with PTSD. And so I want to discuss some of the ways in which mindfulness contributes to the actual recovery process. So one of the things it helps with is reducing avoidance behaviors, because you're forcing yourself to face things, right? And it helps with your connection to everything around you. So one of the hallmarks of post-traumatic stress is that tendency to avoid reminders of your trauma, right? So while the avoidance may actually, give you or provide you with a temporary relief, it actually often reinforces the fear and distress associated with the memory that you have, which isn't good. So you're just telling your brain, yes, we should be scared of this kind of thing. So mindfulness invites a person to face their thoughts and your feelings without any judgment. Don't be beating yourself up, judging yourself, or judging what the feeling is, or thinking, oh, people are going to think I'm crazy. Keep all that out of your head. You just face it and be aware of it without judgment. And that helps a person to process it and integrate your experiences rather than sort of shutting them off. The same thing happens when you use alcohol or drugs. It gives you temporary relief, but you're reinforcing the fact that something's wrong, and then it doesn't work, so you got to do more, and then you end up with an addiction problem on top of your post-traumatic stress. And the same thing can happen with medication. Medications really is just designed to calm you down enough to where a therapist or a counselor, psychologist can help you begin therapy and start working through it. And the idea behind that is as you're going and starting to work on things to get better, you're supposed to be weaned off the medication a little at a time, so that when you get done with your therapy, you're off the medication, and now you have a toolbox, so to speak, to deal with anything that may pop up after that. And you don't need the medication or any of those things anymore, because you actually have to process all this stuff. You can't just cover it up. The next thing is it helps regulate the nervous system. So it does that by activating what they call the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's basically the body's rest and digest mode, is what they call it. This counters the hyperarousal state that one often has when they have PTSD. It sort of helps you reduce your heart rate, blood pressure, and cortisol levels. And over time, mindfulness can help recalibrate your nervous system, making it less reactive to triggers, because you're teaching yourself how to be calm. It's sort of like you're retraining your brain. And I have a video on that. It's actually, there's a chapter in my third book, The Sword and the Anvil. And it's one of my steps in my 13-step foundation to healing post-traumatic stress in healthy, natural ways. And I believe it was step number 5, and it's called Retraining Your Brain. So go through and check out my videos, past videos. It's in the list there somewhere. So I would recommend watching that. It also, mindfulness also enhances emotional regulation. So the ability to observe your emotions without becoming overwhelmed is a cornerstone of mindfulness, really. So for people with post-traumatic stress, this skill obviously would be invaluable in managing the intense feelings that one can have, like anger, fear, or sadness. So by cultivating a mindful stance, a person can acknowledge and accept their emotions without being consumed by them. And that's a big difference. You're accepting it and acknowledging it, but you're not being consumed or controlled by it anymore. Mindfulness also improves cognitive function. So it's been shown to enhance activity in a person's prefrontal cortex, which is the region of the brain responsible for your decision-making, attention, and self-regulation. And so this can help people with post-traumatic stress improve their concentration and memory, which we talked about. It can be problematic. I had a big problem with that. As well as your ability to evaluate situations rationally, because when you're dealing with your post-traumatic stress, say you're having an anxiety attack or panic attack, something like, you are completely irrational. And that's why they call it a panic attack, right? So this helps you regulate that panic, and deal with things in a more calm, focused manner. And lastly, mindfulness fosters a sense of safety. So trauma often disrupts a person's sense of safety in the world, right? You're always in a state of panic, heightened awareness. Mindfulness practices, and particularly those focused on grounding and present moment awareness, can help a person reconnect with the here and now, reinforcing a feeling of security and stability. And one of the things one of my therapists, psychiatrists, told me many years ago when I was going through therapy, she had asked me a question and said, if you have one foot, and this is regarding mindfulness and what we just talked about. She said, if you have one foot in the past, meaning I'm living in my past, focused on those bad memories, and one foot on the future, meaning being worried about the future constantly, she said, what happens to today? I said, I don't know. And she just looked at me and she said, you piss all over it. So in other words, being focused on your past and the bad memories, and focused on the future and worrying about what may never happen, you lose the only thing that you really have, and that is today in the present moment. The past is over. It happened. It's already over. Leave it where it belongs in the past. The future hasn't happened yet, so don't worry about it. There's always tomorrow. There's no sense in worrying about something that hasn't happened and may or may not ever happen, right? So all you have is today, and you don't want to waste that. Okay, let's talk about some mindfulness-based interventions for post-traumatic stress. Several evidence-based therapeutic programs have actually been developed to sort of integrate this mindfulness that we're talking about into post-traumatic stress treatment. So these include mindfulness-based stress reduction, which they call MBSR. And this was developed by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. But MBSR is an 8-week program that teaches people various mindfulness techniques to manage their stress and improve their mental well-being. And studies have shown that this MBSR is effective in reducing post-traumatic stress symptoms and improving overall quality of life. I mean, once you start healing and all that, your life is going to improve dramatically, the quality of it. Another therapy is mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT. So that combines mindfulness practices with cognitive behavioral therapy techniques. And cognitive behavioral therapy is basically when you go to see a psychiatrist or a psychologist, therapist, counselor, mental health professional, they get you to talk about your trauma until to the point where it no longer bothers you. So you're talking about over and over again, so you're facing it until it doesn't bother you anymore. And so it combines that therapy with the mindfulness techniques that we've been talking about. And that is particularly effective in addressing the negative thought patterns that people can have and the emotional dysregulation associated with the post-traumatic stress that people can have. Another one is trauma-sensitive mindfulness, that's TSM, and that's specifically designed for individuals with trauma histories. And it emphasizes creating a safe environment and tailoring your mindfulness practices to avoid re-traumatization. And this approach is really beneficial for those with, say, like severe PTSD. So if symptoms. So if you had, traumatic events happen to you over and over and over again throughout your life, like I did, this therapy is particularly helpful with that. And the last thing I wanted to mention was yoga and movement-based therapies. And so these mindful movement practices, such as yoga, combine like physical postures, obviously breathing techniques, and mindfulness to help people reconnect with their bodies and release stored tension. And you do that through the physical part of the yoga. So there, as with anything, same with this, there's some challenges and considerations. And, while mindfulness does offer significant benefits, it doesn't come without its challenges. So for some people with post-traumatic stress, focusing inward can initially amplify distressing memories or sensations, and that did happen to me. That's why when I first started doing it, I was under the supervision of a doctor, and she helped me through that. So it's essential to approach the mindfulness practices with care, obviously, and particularly under the guidance of a qualified professional, which I did in the beginning. And then, now I do it all on my own now. And then I started working on that too. She helped me with it when I would go to see her once a week. And then she had me start working on things on my own at home. And I had to record or write down, what I experienced and that sort of thing, so that when I went back, we discussed it. Until I got to the point where I just do it on my own and we didn't have to do it in her office anymore. And additionally, I want to say that, mindfulness should not be seen as a standalone treatment, but as a complementary tool within a broader therapeutic framework. So it's just something to add to your toolbox. Like I've always said, when you start your healing journey, it's best to try a whole bunch of different things, because not everything's going to work, but some things will. And you stick with what works and discard the rest. And I did that. There was things I tried that just didn't work. There's a lot of them. There was other things that worked great, and I stuck with those. And that's going to be different for everybody. So in conclusion, I just want to say that, mindfulness is a powerful ally in a person's journey toward healing from post-traumatic stress. So by fostering present moment awareness, emotional regulation, and a sense of safety, it actually enables a person to transform their relationship with their trauma and actually reclaim their life. And that's a big thing. That's a big part of healing from post-traumatic stress, is you're reclaiming your life because you feel like you're a prisoner. This post-traumatic stress takes over your life. And we have to get past that. So as research and clinical practices continue to evolve, as everything always does, mindfulness-based interventions really do hold an immense promise for helping people affected by post-traumatic stress move from just surviving to actually thriving. And I know I'm evidence that I'm thriving now. I lived like I was just trying to survive, right? I don't do that anymore. So whether someone practices through formal programs or integrate it into one's daily life, mindfulness does offer a pathway to resilience and recovery. So it's a reminder that, hey, even in the face of profound pain, the present moment holds the potential for peace and renewal, as we discussed in the story that I told you, the question that my doctor asked me about what happens to today when you have your foot in the past and the other foot in the future. So with that, I hope this podcast, this information was beneficial to you. Please like, subscribe, and share my video with those who may benefit from it. Please leave a comment down below. I like to get those and I answer those. If you wish to talk to me more discreetly, you can go to my website, robertserockijr.com, and you can go to my contact page and email me directly through there. I also have several other pages on the website that contain a lot of information that's free that would be beneficial to people. All my work, radio interviews, TV interviews, newspaper articles, all that stuff is there. I also have a page for my books if you so choose to buy one. If you do, I'd appreciate it. It helps me to continue and to be able to keep doing what I'm doing. You can purchase them directly from the website. If not, or if you're more comfortable going to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, I have links there in my store page. You can click on those. It'll take you right there and you can order them from there. If you do, I thank you and I appreciate it. If not, there's lots of information there, and there's a lot more videos on my channel here for you to peruse and watch and learn from. With that, let's go out and have a great day, and I will talk to you guys next time.